Hey guys! It's literally been like a minute since I last uploaded, but we're back, and like I said, we're gonna be looking at the Mr. Hop Playhouse free story explained video by Super Mike. So yeah, let's get into it then. And I swear I get yeet. Alright, so it's 22 minutes long. No, to worry, I'm just gonna put the camera.
Hey guys, Super Horror Mike here, and
Mike.
in today's video, we explore the story of Mr. Hobbs' Playhouse 3.
He's back!
The tale of a young girl and her grandmother who find themselves caught up in the web of a twisted demonic entity and the killer toys running amok under its control.
Yep.
Before we get started with this story walkthrough, it's important to note that I won't be thoroughly recapping the past events of Mr. Hop 1 and 2 in this video. So if you'd like an in-depth understanding of that story, be sure to check out my detailed exploration of those games. I'll leave a link to that video at the end of this one. With that said, let's check out the events of this conclusive chapter in the Mr. Hobbs trilogy. This is the story of Mr. Hobbs' Playhouse 3 Explained.
Oh god. Part 1, Ruby. That is so creepy, dude.
Our story picks up 6 months after the events of Mr. Hobbs' Playhouse, continuing the story of Ruby, a child who lost her parents in a fire the night Mr. Hop attacked her home under the control of the entity.
6 months ago, I defended myself from a monster that took away my home and my parents. Things have been awful ever since my nana died. I wish she could call me her little gem and tell me everything was going to be okay. Just one more time.
Ruby wakes one night to find herself alone in her aunt's house. She heads downstairs for a drink of water, but after filling her glass, the power goes out and a creepy series of events begin to unfold.
Of course.
Ruby's doll suddenly appears in the living room, and after collecting it up and heading to bed, she hears the voice of her father beckoning to her from the hallway.
It's me. Open the door.
Hell no.
Dad?
Ruby follows her father's voice downstairs, but soon finds herself lost in a version of the house she doesn't recognize. The message, "Give yourself to us," written in blood on the walls.
Oh boy.
A female voice calls out her name.
Oh no.
This voice is a trap.
Oh
and
no.
leads Ruby into the clutches of Mr. Hop, who stalks the halls of this nightmare realm.
Part 2, the underworld.
Ruby is transported to the underworld, the realm of the entity. Confused as to how Mr. Hop found her, she pushes on in search of a way back to the human realm.
In Minecraft.
As she explores, Ruby comes across shrines that fill us in on the dark history of the underworld. The first explains that the gemstone fragments we find throughout the various stages once belonged to much more powerful stones. A sliver of the Six's energy flows through them. These 6 are a set of symbols that contain mystical powers when combined as part of a necklace. Due to their heavenly origins and subsequent corruption by the Dark Lord, these symbols can be used as a powerful source of both light and dark magic, depending on the individual who wields them and the purity of their heart. Ruby must first collect up 3 circular stones which, when placed in a nearby tablet, open the door to her escape. These stones feature familiar symbols, each representing the killer toys under the entity's control. Mr. Hop, Mr. Stripes, and Miss Bow.
Oh boy.
Unfortunately, the exit doesn't guide Ruby back home, but rather leads her to an illusionary version of a Blacklands Manor orphanage, a place Ruby has heard of before, though she doesn't remember why. This was, of course, the orphanage her grandmother Esther grew up in, the very one where she herself came into contact with the entity and its band of insidious living toys.
You think?
As Ruby heads downstairs, she is ambushed by one of the entity's guardians, a skeletal humanoid carrying a pitchfork. Yikes. She manages to escape further into the orphanage, where she must avoid not only more of these guardians, but also deadly traps, in the form of swinging axes, spiked floors, and thorny branches.
Well, that is...
Eventually, Ruby reaches a prison cell, where another young girl has been tied up above a pit of spikes. In order to free her, Ruby must flip a switch in the adjacent room. After doing so, the door locks behind her, and a giant troll-like creature shows up to stop the terrified child. To defeat this troll, Ruby must solve a puzzle which opens a trapdoor in the center of the room, dropping her assailant into a vat of acid.
Oh no.
After defeating the troll, Ruby returns to the prison cell and frees the other girl.
Esther.
As she does this, Mr. Hop shows up and the two must flee to safety. After escaping the demented bunny rabbit, the girl Ruby saved reveals herself to be none other than Esther, Ruby's grandmother in child form.
Well
done, Ruby. You
Esther.
really are my little gem.
Aw.
Nana, I can't believe it. It's so good
Aw.
to see you again, dear.
That's sweet. Part 3. Esther, Isabella, Entity.
Esther had been raised in the Blacklands Manor orphanage, and this was where she first encountered the Entity and its killer toys. These events are chronicled in the prequel game Mr. Hop's Playhouse 2. One day, a box of toys were anonymously donated to the orphanage. Esther and her friends Molly and Isaac each received a toy from the donation box. These toys were Mr. Stripes, Miss Bow, and Mr. Hop.
Yeah.
The trio found out that these toys were haunted by a demonic entity, an entity which had once been the Guardian of Hope before being cast down into the underworld and becoming the Dark Lord.
Yeah.
An entity that enjoys corrupting human souls and feasting upon their pain and suffering.
Which is
The
creepy.
Dark Lord stole the 6 medallions, which once kept the balance between the realm of darkness and light, and used their power to forge 3 strong subordinates, which he then bound to the aforementioned toys. These minions then began a crusade to gather souls for their master. Esther was later tricked by another orphan named Dee into enacting a ritual which would bring the toys to life under the control of said entity.
We now know her actual
Esther
name.
discovered
It's
that Dee
Isabella.
was the reincarnation of a girl named Isabel, a child who centuries ago had worn the medallions of the 6 herself. The entity had given Isabel the medallions so it could use her as a vessel to cause torment and suffering. He influenced the child whose heart was already full of hatred to join him. Isabel then used the power of the 6 to kill her mother, which then led to her own execution, as locals believed her to be a witch and so burned her at the stake. Isabel tried to influence both Esther and, years later, Ruby to give themselves over to the entity, but luckily both managed to resist. Esther used the 6 medallions to defeat both Isabel and the
This is a
entity
recap,
and save
by the
her
way.
friends. Unfortunately, as she grew older and weaker, the entity was able to finally take control, influencing Esther to hand the cursed Mr. Hop toy over to Ruby before being claimed by the demon in death. A new nightmare then began for her granddaughter, leading to the loss of her parents when Mr. Hop sprung to life and attacked their family home. As Esther had once used the power of the 6 to confine the Dark Lord to the underworld, he now sought vengeance, looking to imprison both Esther and Ruby so they may eternally suffer by his hand. Now Ruby and Esther are trapped in the entity's realm and must team up to find a way back out.
Sounds good to me. Part 1. The Walking Nightmare. Or the Waking Nightmare.
The 2 girls find themselves in a dark room full of cameras.
Yeah.
Isabel rises up in her spirit form and proposes the trio play a little game.
Isabel. Nana, who is that? Is she a person?
Esther, it's so good to see you.
I wish I could say the same.
Why don't we all play a little game? We'll go first.
Hell no.
While Ruby searches for an escape route, Esther must defend her room from the murderous advances of Mr. Hop. To do this, she flashes each of the 3 cameras periodically to check if the demonic toy is hiding
This
in
is
the
like
connecting
Five Nights at
hallways.
Freddy's.
When she spots him, Esther must quickly close the door, sending Mr. Hop retreating back into the surrounding darkness.
This is like Five Nights at Freddy's.
After repeating this process several times, the demon's presence subsides, and Esther and Ruby make their escape.
Nice.
After they reach a safe distance, the 2 girls stop to talk. Here, before a giant statue of the entity, Esther fills Ruby in on its horrifying origins, and tells her granddaughter exactly what is going on.
Nana, what is that?
The entity.
That is the fallen guardian of hope. The entity. But that means we're in...
The
Yes, dear.
Underworld.
The underworld. How? This is where bad people go. We're not bad, right?
No.
No, of course not. Do you remember that necklace I used to own?
The
The
medallion?
medallions?
Yeah.
The ones you said protected us?
Yes, I used them to keep the entity and Mr. Hop away from us. But
Oh,
as I
no.
got older and weaker, I couldn't do that anymore. We must find those medallions.
Ruby! No!
Ruby falls through the floor of the orphanage, deep into the catacombs of the underworld. For now, Esther must press on alone. She navigates further into the endless halls of the orphanage, solving puzzles, avoiding the Dark Lord's henchmen, and eventually surviving yet another tense encounter with Mr. Hop. Meanwhile, Ruby wakes in the catacombs beneath the orphanage, and begins to seek a way back to the surface. While she explores, Ruby finds a seemingly harmless panda doll named Miss Bo.
Oh no.
She doesn't realize this is one of the 3 subordinates of the Dark Lord, and before long, the monster materializes and chases Ruby through the darkness.
She looks
Luckily, the girl uses her wits to hide and sneak away undetected. While Ruby deals with Miss Bo, Esther finds herself pitted against the deadly tiger toy, Mr. Stripes. He stalks her in the darkness of the library. But, just as all seems lost, a guiding light shows up and begins leading Esther to a series of plates. By touching these plates in a certain sequence, Esther is able to vanquish Mr. Stripes and banish him. At least, for now. After surviving the attack, Esther reaches a podium which holds the first of the 6 medallions. She once wielded these medallions to defeat the entity and Isabel, banishing them back to the underworld. Perhaps this could work again. Collecting the medallion grants Esther her light powers. She is now able to fire out a powerful aura that destroys the minions of the underworld.
Hell yeah.
As Esther continues on, she returns to an area of the orphanage she had long hoped to forget, the sleeping quarters. Here, the voices of her old friends, Isaac and Molly, echo the misdeeds of the wicked matron Miss Beverly, a woman who mistreated them many years ago.
Do you think Miss Beverly ever smiles?
Only when a puppy is in danger. Can we go play now?
We move back to Ruby's adventure, and she now finds herself in her old nursery, a place where the other children teased and tormented her after she lost her parents in the house fire. Nobody believed her story, the tale of Mr. Hop. It seems the entity is using the underworld to bring to life the greatest fears of both of these children.
Well,
In the nursery, Ruby must solve 3 different puzzles, each one providing her with a different symbol. A moon, star, and triangle to be precise. By completing these puzzles and collecting these symbols, the door is unlocked and Ruby finally escapes. Although something seems to have escaped from a giant's jack-in-the-box in the process, and can now be heard eerily giggling through the halls. We return to Esther, who continues to use her newfound power to fight back against the entity's army of darkness. Esther meets Isabel once more, who relishes in the pain she is forced to relive by exploring the orphanage.
Do you remember these walls, Esther? This place of pain?
Leave us alone, Isabel! Let my family go
let
home!
us
You
go!
will not keep us confined again.
Esther and Ruby reunite, and Ruby informs her grandma that something is following her. Esther vows to put an end to things, and the two continue together. During the final leg of their journey, Esther comes across more and more of the medallion pieces, collecting them up with the hope that by wearing the necklace, she will be able to defeat the entity once more. As the girls explore, they are attacked by Mr. Hop and his twisted friends at every turn. There are also more of the entity's monstrous underlings to deal with, such as this giant acid-dwelling pincer bug. Esther destroys this hideous creature, and after doing so, both herself and Ruby find themselves inside another memory.
Are you kidding
This
me?
time, a haunting childhood memory that belonged to Ruby, of a day where the two visited a carnival maze. While visiting the maze,
Oh
Ruby had
my
been
God.
scared by a jester, And lo and behold, this creepy figure is now manifested in the nightmare realm.
That's
It
creepy.
is in fact the very thing that escaped the Jack-in-the-Box back in the nursery.
I hate.
Esther and Ruby must navigate the maze, being sure to keep a watchful eye on the jester, as it can only move when they avert their gaze.
I hate.
After escaping the jester and freeing themselves from Ruby's
I'm
traumatic
just
memory, the guiding light appears once more and leads Esther to another medallion piece. However, while Esther claims the medallion, Ruby is abducted once more.
Are you okay, Ruby? Ruby?
Not again.
Ruby finds herself deep within the entity's lair and soon comes face to face with the Dark Lord himself.
She is not what she seems. Some time ago, she stole my medallions and imprisoned me here.
You're
Because
lying.
you're evil. She saved us.
Yeah.
We are cursed, forsaken, not evil. Tell me, if she cared for you so deeply, why would she give you a toy that has taken everything from you?
I don't
Your
care what you.
parents are gone, your friends have abandoned you, and now you're all the way down here.
Demons are
in
lying,
this
Ruby.
dark abyss.
Don't listen to him.
The entity tries to corrupt Ruby and turn her against Esther. Meanwhile, Esther speaks with a glowing orb of light.
You have no idea how special you both are.
Who are you? Why are you helping us?
When the time comes, you will know.
What?
Though the orb's identity eludes Esther, we are able to piece together who this is based on a series of flashbacks that appear randomly throughout our adventure. These flashbacks explain the origin of this orb and its connection to Esther.
Part 5. Faith.
The flashbacks are brought to life in the same 2D pixel art style as the first two games. During these flashbacks, we follow the journey of a pregnant woman named Faith. Faith has a complicated pregnancy, one which leaves her mostly bedridden. As she dreams, her husband Arthur watches over her. Unbeknownst to him, the entity attempts to influence Faith while she sleeps, seemingly wishing to harm both her and her unborn child. Faith is heavily religious and tries to explain to her husband Arthur that God has spoken to her and warned her the child is in danger. But Arthur assumes his wife is simply unwell and doesn't seem to believe her. Faith and Arthur consult a doctor to try and help her, but when the pregnancy eventually comes, it claims Faith's life. The child, however, survives, and this child is Esther.
Esther.
Unable to deal with the pain of losing his wife, Arthur gives up the child for adoption, leaving Esther in the care of the Blacklands Manor orphanage. This is how she came to find herself there in Mr. Hopp's Playhouse 2. Meanwhile, Faith transcended to the afterlife, where she became the watchful orb of light that now guides Esther and Ruby to safety, watching over her daughter from the afterlife.
Aww.
Esther must now save Ruby before she is corrupted by the Dark Lord's lies. She faces a gauntlet of terror as she must do battle with all three of the demonic toys. Using the power of light harnessed through the medallions, Esther successfully takes down Miss Bow, Mr. Stripes, and finally Mr. Hop, each one rewarding her with another medallion piece after their defeat.
Sweet.
Esther now possesses 5 of the 6 necklace medallions. To claim the 6th and final medallion piece, she must enter the entity's lair for one final showdown.
Oh, it is on. Part 6. The endings explained.
Mr. Hop's Playhouse 3 contains 2 different endings, one good and one bad. So let's take a look at each in turn, beginning with the bad ending. In this sequence, Esther fights her way to confront the Dark Lord and save Ruby, but finds it's too late and her granddaughter has been corrupted.
Where is she?
Young Ruby is right here, safe with me.
Ruby.
Ruby, are you okay?
Young Ruby has come to her senses and is now my subordinate.
Ruby.
She no longer wants anything to do with you.
No.
You gave me that toy, Nana. You took my life away from me. You're the reason I'm even here. Ruby, I never would have given Mr. Hop to you if I could have helped it. They took control of me. I'm so sorry that I couldn't protect you.
Another lie.
It's not a lie.
You're still my little gem, right?
Aww.
Enough of this. You will fall here, Esther.
Whoa.
sent back to the human realm, where the entity may prey upon and torment her from the shadows forevermore. Meanwhile, Esther is destroyed, and will forever remain a prisoner within the underworld. However, there is a way to end things on a happier and more satisfying note. To do so, we must make sure we have collected all gemstones.
Yeah! Oh, you have got to be do now. This is for too long. I'm sorry, guys, but I'm gonna have to. No, actually, I can finally. No, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know how to edit. I'm still learning. I'm worried if I try, I'll screw it up. But thank you guys for watching. See you guys next time in part 2 when we wrap up this Twisted Tale.